The information we deliver to media channels has changed in its delivery form. The foundation has remained the same, and that it must be factual. We must be able to back it up, and that it can be replicated.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Wisenetix Podcast episode. I'm very happy to have here with me today our guest speaker, Rick Purnell. Rick is Managing Director of Communications at RPR, and he's going to share a lot of great insights with us today regarding media and media outlets, relationship with media outlets, and other cool stuff. Welcome, Rick.
I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Rick, we like to start our conversations learning more about our guest speakers. So if you could share a little bit on your background, that would be awesome.
Sure. Thank you. I'm an odd one in that I'm doing what I went to school to learn. It's still this late in my career, but I went to school to get a degree in agricultural communications and have been fortunate one way or the other to continue that learning, if you will, throughout my career. And whether that's helping farmers and ranchers tell their stories or helping corporations, distributors, and manufacturers share their stories of how they help farmers and ranchers and their land and livestock, I've been able to, privileged to share stories from all angles and to share stories with multiple audiences. And not many people I know are doing what they went to school to do.
Yes. It's very common to see people changing their paths and throughout the way, and it's very satisfying when we have a plan, we have a direction we want to head, and we can keep on path and build our careers on that.
Mm-hmm.
Rick, the next question, one of our standard questions, we have three of them. One is the background, and the second one is about your experiences in life. We like to ask our guest speakers what are their top three experiences in life and what did they learn from those?
Thank you. Again, I'm very fortunate to have three really good experiences to share. In the early 2000s, when it was okay to begin uttering the phrase animal welfare. And I was able, through the grace of good clients and good producers, able to, and strong academia, pull together a panel of an academic, a beef producer, a dairy producer, and a couple others together to put together a symposium or seminar at the World Ag Expo in the early 2000s. And some of these lessons that we learned during that seminar are still being repeated today, nearly 20 years later. So I felt like that was a good achievement on the client's part. And as well, the people talking made the points well enough that they've stuck. And we see it in daily practices on beef and dairy operations today. So secondly, we hear the phrase regenerative agriculture a lot today and sustainability. Well, for nearly 15 years, I've been privileged to work with the fertilizer industry in honoring farmers who practice what we preach, who are good stewards, who are providing good nutrients and good land management. And we're able to award these farmers year after year through recognition programs and bring them together. And the cumulative effort of their efforts has touched many millions of acres beyond their individual farms, thanks to these communication efforts we have. And these 4R farmers, as we know them, carry their message in classes locally, in seminars on the national stage, and by serving as media representatives for the fertilizer industry. So those are achievements. We'll keep improving agriculture as we go along. Lastly, we just mentioned regenerative agriculture. Sustainability, the undefined proposition we all talk about, sustainability has become very important, whether you're on the crop side or the livestock side. And I've been fortunate to be able to work with a couple organizations who are quantifying their sustainability efforts and have issued their their first sustainability reports ever. And the good part is we were able to back them up properly, and in doing so, created many positive messages for the clients to share with customers, share internally about how well we're doing, and keep in our back pocket to share with media as we have conversations about long-term opportunities.
That's great. It's awesome to see, someone that had the opportunity to be in the forefront of such evolutions in agriculture and being part of that, helping not only producers and agriculture in general, but also the supply chain and companies working there. Rick, my next question is just supposed to be something a little bit fun with a little bit of humor, which is, how would your parents describe what you do today?
My parents would tell you I write a lot of stories and go to a lot of conventions.
Well, it's somehow accurate.
It's fairly accurate, yes.
Awesome. That's a question we use to transition to the part of the podcast when we discuss about marketing, about sales, any business related topic we're covering. Which in this scenario today we're talking about media outlets, and the relationship with them. And I think an interesting start for this conversation is asking you, well, you have a lot of experience in the industry, and especially with media. I wanted to better understand, like, how has the approach to communicating with media outlets has evolved over the years, right? Especially when it comes to what they're interested in and how they prefer to, be contacted.
Thank you. And just to be clear, we're talking about the information they want and how they want to be contacted and how we maintain relationships.
Perfect. Yes.
As always, working with the media, strong, solid information is key. The volume of that information has changed in that we tend to be more brief and to the point now and offer the big volume behind the initial points. But not too long ago, a phone call or an email to a media influencer would be somewhat personal. You knew them because they were who they were, or because you worked together on a project. Today, there's still that personal touch to it, but it's more nuanced, and it's also we're more focused on the message at hand. And as long as we're providing good, strong information in the way they want, the way the media influencers want, we're headed down the right direction. So, again, not long ago, that information used to be on paper. It would print big media packets and with lots of news releases and lots of photos. That's all digital now. And while we still may have the same information, it may be in bite-sized information because the way our influencers use it has changed. We're no longer producing 3 and 4 page magazine articles. We're producing pieces on the web. We're producing pieces for newsletters. We're producing pieces to be messages to be sent via text. So they don't need all at once everything in the world. So it's a learning process. Keep in mind, some of these editors and broadcasters came along when who are still working when there was just radio and TV and print. They had to evolve to different forms of communications. So in a lot of cases, we were all learning together. And what we found over the years is that it goes back to what it used to be, or the process. Foundation of the process remains the same. Know your influencer, know what they want, and know when they want it. For example, I know Christy wants agronomy related news in very short pieces, and in the body of an email is fine. I know Lori wants the full story, but with subheads so she can make it into a story that she can feed to her readers as it goes along. And that knowledge only comes from having relationships, and that's getting to know the editors and the broadcasters. And you find commonalities and reasons in addition to what you're working on to talk to them, to get to know them. Shared interests. It may be kids. It could be the latest trend in steer shows.
Perfect. Yeah, we think a lot about this relationship. Yeah, relationship with other stakeholders, especially when we're thinking about sales, right? I'm working today in the sales side, and we know how important it is to build strong relationships. At the end of the day, it's all about, a human talking to another human to accomplish beneficial output for both of them. But also that's not limited to this to the sales side of things, but also to media partnering and media relationship. What would you say are strategies to build this, long and lasting, strong relationships with media channels today?
How we build relationships with media today is it varies a little bit by medium. Broadcast is a little different than print and internet, but it goes back to the old adage you heard since grade school, and that's do your homework. Know who you're talking to. There are enough instances of profiles of editors, broadcasters, and internet content managers to get a profile on them, to know what they want, and then read and view and watch what they do, how they do. Know them before you initially contact them. And when you do that, you can pick up the phone or you can send an appropriate email or text, whichever they prefer. Introduce yourself and deliver information in the way they prefer it. And by that, that means do they want questions? Do they want you to tell them what you're doing? Uh, Perfect example. I just sent a message today to an editor about a trade show. We've had conversations about this specific exhibitor in the past, and the message was simply, Bill will be ready for you at 3 o'clock on Tuesday in booth number XYZ. And got a feedback, I'll be there. Now, preceding that was a series of weekly discussions, but they were all in the format she wanted. So it's getting success by knowing who you're talking to and who you need to be presenting your client to.
At the end, is all about understanding the audience and who's in the other side and what's their expectation.
Exactly.
Once you understand what they want, you can deliver. That's it. Great. And my next question is, how do you see this? Like, how can you share how the type of information we deliver to these media channels has changed over time?
The information we deliver to media channels has changed in its delivery form. The foundation has remained the same, and that it must be factual. We must be able to back it up, and that it can be replicated. So if we're delivering news about let's say a new product, years ago that might have been a fancy pamphlet, booklet, brochure. Today it could be photos via an email or video and with a short description with links to more information. Um, and again, that's knowing who you're sending it to. If it's even within the same organization, the people you're targeting could be sitting right next to each other and prefer information delivered two ways. So you need to be able to deliver it two ways to them. Uh, Specifically, it's nearly all electronic now. Some of it's live, and we can actually take influencers to a live demo of programs. We're doing more in field, and so we're meeting the media influencer where they are. By that, if they're working in an office building, we're meeting them there. But if we know they're working in a rural area, we may be able to send them to a dealer or distributor that has the product or service where they can experience it on their own. So sometimes we're delivering real experiences as opposed to look at it on a screen or hold it in the hand.
So thinking about this changes not only in the format of, and not only has the format of the media consumption and the information consumption has changed to this little gadgets here on our hands, but also as we touched this in before, the volume of information and the speed of information. So my next question is about this. Uh, in today's communication speed, how do you ensure that your messages are clear and impactful to your targeted audience?
There are several ways to do that. Thank you for the question, because being clear, not just to our target audience of the media influencers, we have to give them the ammunition or the power and knowledge to make it clear to their audiences too. So there are several ways we go about it. Um, One is, again, it all goes back to accuracy. You've got to be sure you're accurate. You've got to be sure you understand them and their audience. But something we find effective is we have a standing group, if you will, advisors, we call them. We will test the messages among cattlemen or cattle producers if we have a message targeting cattle raisers. We'll take our group of 6, 7 and do a quick test. Does this pass? Do you understand this? Does it pass? Is it interesting? We'll do the same thing with swine. Same thing with farmers. Is we will test what we're sending out before we send it out. And ideally, that's a fairly quick process because these people are part of our group and at the ready. Sometimes it can take a little while. And sometimes there are emergencies where you have to do the very best you can. But typically, those situations are ones you've experienced before and know what works. I mean, there is a good breadth of experience in this group. So a lot of us have seen, you know, the good and the bad.
Perfect.
But ultimately, running something by your intended audience is what we find to be most effective.
Makes sense. And so continuing here on our thought on the participation of media channels today, our relationship with them. The media channels, they don't just reshare the content that you're planning, right? Can you share a little bit more on what's the role that these media channels they play in shaping the information that ultimately will impact their audience, which is our audience as well?
Good point. Uh, Media channels help farmers, ranchers, aquaculture professionals, poultry professionals make informed decisions. And as communicators and PR people, we don't take that lightly because we need to help them make good decisions, not just because of our clients, but just for the good of the industry and for us as well. So, whether it's a broadcast, a long form editorial piece, a LinkedIn post, a social media post, we have to ensure that our influencers are getting messages that fit those media channels. So often, and I'll give you an example of just today, we finished a fall campaign, media only, just public relations, but within that campaign are directed toward print media primarily, but within that are news releases, social media post copy, cut lines for photos, and biographies of anybody involved so that the media person can adapt it to whatever form they want to use. And in this case, one person on the receiving end has a whole package to use: social, print, broadcast, online content. But if they're just a social media person, they can plug the social media post out of what they get and put the rest to the side. So the media channels are changing in what they want and changing in how they use it. And as you mentioned earlier, they're very quick to use it. We just have to adapt and help them keep leading their readers and viewers on to make good decisions.
Make good decisions. That's something you highlighted in the beginning of your answer. It's not only about communicating with those customers, but helping them to make good decisions. That's my next point. How do you balance educational content with promotional goals. At the end of the day, you need to help a customer, a supplier, to increase their sales, sell more of their products, but not only for profit, but also there it needs to be a win-to-win interaction between your customers and their customers. Otherwise, it will not be a lasting relationship, right? How do you balance this? How do you balance education and promotional?
Balancing is easier, I should say, when you go back to starting with the goal of providing good, sound information. So once you've got that as your goal, you can boil down the benefits of your product or service as to what it does for the end user, whether that be a farmer, a rancher, a poultry producer. What does this vaccine do? What disease does it help prevent? What does this feed additive do? Does it help the animal grow faster? What does this anti-infective do? You you get those good messages right. You have the science right. That comes behind everything. And what what we do is focus on the benefits of the product to the animals and the additional or maintained profit of the producer, but then talk about how this practice benefits the industry overall. And an example is good vaccine practices, or on the side of beef and dairy, beef quality assurance guidelines for administering vaccines. We don't have to be heavy push on the product promotion. We can talk about good vaccine handling, good vaccine protocols that a crew can use, and that not only increases disease management or improves disease management, it decreases any injuries from needles to any any scarring to the tissue, to the meat, and overall lifts the profits and the humaneness of the livestock industry. So we don't we can talk about product specific, but raise the bar of the industry at the same time. And those are things we look for.
Promote, yes, we want to promote the product, but we need also to promote the expertise of the supplier, or wherever we're talking about, and show them they are not just selling a product, but they are experts on what they do. Yeah, that's a perfect link to the educational part. And I have another question, which is like, it follows under the same category. We're talking about here education, but also aligning the educational parts to the commercial goals of a customer. What techniques do you use to ensure that your customers' messaging aligns with their desired positioning in the industry?
One thing, there's several things we do to make sure our messaging aligns with the positioning the clients want their products to have. And first of all goes back to understanding your audience. And that's knowing that if you're talking to larger cow-calf producers or smaller cow-calf producers or hobby producers, or even swine showers as opposed to large swine breeders, it's knowing the audience. And then once you have your positioning set as to what you think it is, testing to make sure it hits. And that can be formal testing with very specific groups. It can be quantitative testing that gives you a really good direction. And when you're on a not so huge budget, can really help set you down the road correctly with lesser expense than a long testing program. And also just checking those first few communiques, especially the social media and internet communications, to see how how folks are responding. That gives you a good time to double check to make sure you're on track. And if there needs to be adjustments, you can go back and adjust some things that are back down the pipeline so that they better fit.
Rick, thanks for the great insights. And I have a last question here to wrap up our conversation, which brings me back to something that you mentioned before. you said that each media outlet and also the professionals work within those media channels. They have their own way of having their message, their content, and they expect you to deliver the content in different ways. And ultimately, what they want is to keep their readers, keep their audience engaged with the content they're producing, right? Um, what is your approach today on delivering the content that meets both their immediate needs, what the media channels want, but keeping this aligned with the long-term goals of your customers? So you need to satisfy the media channel with the content and the format that they need to keep their audience happy, but you also need to meet the long-term goals of your customers. How do you do this? How do you approach this?
Both of those needs should be relatively the same in that we're trying to improve the industry overall, improve an industry overall. The media is trying to improve it. My clients are trying to improve it, but yet there needs to be some profit along the way and some understanding, but and and mutual understanding. So what we do in these cases is go back to the positioning we just talked about, is make sure that's aligned, and then once that's set, we try to help our media partners, our media influencers, do their jobs as best they can. So we're providing them information not based on just positioning, but based on facts. But also, we should know their audience as well as they do. So we should be providing them information that fits their audience. So that means we have to customize that information, whether that be for cattle feeders, for cow calf operators, for swine breeders, for anybody else, for dairy. And we have a whole new segment of dairy, beef on dairy, that we have to appeal to as well. So we have to adjust that information that goes out the door so that it meets those immediate needs. I've been on the receiving side of PR information as an editor, and I wouldn't want to live without good PR people out there feeding me ideas. But those who provided ideas that applied specifically to my audience and were kind of custom, those were the ones that rolled forward most easily and were more thoroughly covered. And so our job is to get our client's message in a form that fits that media influencer's need.
Perfect. Rick, companies cannot rely only on their channels to, be in touch with their customers, their audiences. So this relationship with media outlets is something very important to any marketing professional that is working out there within their suppliers and trying to address their message to the industry, especially in this world where content is ruling, right? It's not only about commercial side of things, but as we mentioned, education. How do you educate the customers? How you show your thought leadership, your expertise? And I want to thank you for all the great insights you shared on that, especially when it comes to media format, relationship, positioning, and all the things that are linked to the subject. For us to wrap up here, so that was the questions I had about media. Now, thinking a little bit more about your background and how you know how was your journey through media so far. What is one piece of advice you would give to someone that is starting their career today in PR, in marketing, and communication within the industry?
That's a good question, but the answer will vary a little bit. But I was fortunate. My original jobs allowed me to try many different things within the organizations. I could do function A, function B, function C. So I got to try a whole lot of things to see what I liked and what I didn't. And I would encourage folks, if they have that opportunity, be a product manager here today, be a customer service supervisor here tomorrow. Try those different things when you're young, and and participate hard. Participate in your associations, your organizations that support your your business. For example, if you're in marketing, the National Agri Marketing Association would be a logical place. See what else is out there. You may find something that fits you better. But when you find that something, really hone in on the skills needed to get it done. Find mentors. It may be your immediate boss, but you may find a mentor elsewhere. Lean on their advice. And one of my strongest forms of support were finding people who were, recently retired or were about to retire from positions. You got a whole career's worth of perspective, just by going to lunch every now and then or making a long lasting friendship. And so those are things, try everything, but try to see it through the eyes of someone who's been there before.
Perfect. Take the advantage of the experiences others had.
Exactly.
Perfect. Yeah, I love this. First, trying new things and mentoring. I think this is a key thing. Not essential, but it will help you so much. It will help prevent you from failing on others have failed before, and learning from other mistakes or other success as well. So those are some very valuable tips you have there. My last question is, do you have any books, podcasts, documentaries, any relevant things you want to share with the listeners? And by the way, they don't need to be specifically like related to their profession and communication and so on.
Don't worry, mine won't be. I love a good business book as much as anybody else. I don't have a favorite one out there. There are plenty with good advice. What my suggestion would be was find something that stretches your mind a little bit or something that you don't normally read. For example, Maya Angelou is a good, takes your mind way away from where you are right now and makes you think, but doesn't get you so far off track you can't come back, but it gives you new perspective. And as a poet, I don't normally read poetry, but I would read hers quite often. Something that a lot of folks are into, I'm not so much, but I'm getting there. But a good audiobook is a good way to spend some time on the treadmill, spend some time in the car. Again, and I've done the business books on audio, but if the audiobooks is something that can take you away for just a little while, you've gained a little relaxation, had some fun, or maybe even learned something. And so, but I would encourage you to look for fun audiobooks, and then read your business books as you should.
Do your homework. Rick, thank you so much for joining us today. It was really good. All the great insights in terms of media, as you mentioned. Where listeners can find you online?
Online, you can find me on LinkedIn at Rick Purnell, and on the web at rprcompany.com, soon to be updated.
Perfect. For everyone that was here joining us and listening to this great conversation with Rick, thank you for your company, and I hope to see you on our next episode. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Rick.
Thank you, Ricardo.
See you on next episode. Bye.